Tech Cocktail Sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
So tell us a little bit about what you're up to with ID.me.
So IDMe is a digital identity bank. We empower consumers to turn their personal data into retail rewards.
Okay. And you didn't start that way, though.
Not even close.
Your path is a windy one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I was an Army veteran, and I'd gone to Harvard Business School. While I was there, started an academic project with one of my classmates. And originally, we just observed that members of the military and veteran community didn't have a way to interact online. We actually thought we'd be more of a community website first, and so we went out and talked to like military.com and USAA, realized that the enterprise sales cycle would take the better part of 2 years even to run an experiment to see if our hypothesis was correct.
Right.
I wasn't willing to risk 2 years of my life, so the daily deal space was hot. We started a company called TroopSwap and essentially started a daily deals platform for members of the military, which is kind of where that obviously was not a good move because that's not even an industry that has a sustainable business model. As Living Social and Groupon have had to pivot away to e-commerce or affiliate business models. But while we were doing that, we discovered that retailers were very interested in our ability to verify identity in real time, which is something that we had developed while building that marketplace. And then several of them said, would you build an API or a web service where you could do this directly on our website? And then they said, could you do it for students? Could you do it for first responders? Could you do it for outdoor guides, for teachers?
And you said,
yes, absolutely.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
And you did.
And we've done it. So we have over 100 retailers who use our technology. The product is very similar to PayPal for digital identity, where you use your Affinity ID card to access special programs. It could be everything from membership group discounts to military discounts to student discounts. And all the retailers are working in concert to enroll their customers into our network.
Awesome. So do you think, just as hypothetical, do you think that if you were TroopSwap still, you'd still be alive today?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so you did it just for survival.
Yeah, I mean, I think Peter Thiel said it best, that the goal of an entrepreneur is to find a secret in the market.
Yeah.
And you always have to figure out if you're addressing a symptom of a problem or the core underlying problem. And when you find the core underlying problem, you should hope that you found a market where there's some defensibility around your approach. And we had a little bit of serendipity in our path, but it's super exciting to be where we're at right now.
And do you think you've found that perfect product market fit then? Or are you still like evolving as you go?
No, I think so. I think right now we're just scaling out the model that we've already built. But we saw, for instance, we grew our app base by 50% over the last 2 quarters. So the same percentage growth, even on a higher absolute base. And we've had no merchant churn among any of our merchant partners.
Okay. And you've done some partnerships that have been really key. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach partnerships? Because I think you've found some really great partners that have helped you along the way.
Yeah, there's 2 kind of key partnerships. On the retail side, we had Under Armour deploy us into their checkout flow in November of 2012. And actually, when I think about that deal, I don't know if that was like a Jedi mind trick or like what happened, because we had no users to speak of. We hadn't even pioneered the technology with a startup. They were the very first account we went live with, and they integrated us in November 12th of 2012. So right when most retailers are in a code freeze, where the checkout cart is just off limits, the IT folks are don't talk
Let's
to
do
marketing.
it.
Even our direct marketing agency now is they're wow, if that had gone wrong, those folks would have been fired who integrated you. And I was
yeah,
I know. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And then we had USAA, the military financial services firm. So they had done a verification agreement with us. They'd also had done a co-marketing agreement with us, and that was a big reason why Under Armour integrated us, was because USAA had provided marketing assets to several million folks, and Under Armour wanted to reach their marketing targets. And so, we went live with them. We signed up 48,000 users in 45 days, and we were running.
There you go.
Yeah.
How did you guys get those partnerships? Did you go after it, or did they come to you?
Yeah, you have to hustle. I think every entrepreneur plays to your strengths. You have to be self-aware of your weaknesses. You have to play to your strengths. And so, for me, I was one man and his whale, just like Moby Dick, and And so for it first, it was get USAA on board as a key reference account and to bring marketing assets to bear. And then in the retail side, it was get a key retailer on board. And, it's just like Jeff Moore's crossing the chasm, the bell curve.
Yeah.
It just turned out that Under Armour was one of those early adopters where they cared more about the mission of serving the military and what it meant for their brand than they necessarily did about ROI in the first year. Now it turns out that we're driving like 7 figures of incremental revenue for them now, but that wasn't the reason why they integrated us up front. And so now they helped us create network effects. So now we're going in, our pricing's going up, and we're growing more users. As you grow more users, it's easier to talk to merchants.
Right.
As you talk to merchants, you get more supply, you get more users, and so it's...
So you're growing.
Yeah.
And you've thrown some fuel on the fire through some funding and things like that. So let's talk about how you approach that funding aspect of it.
I don't know. I don't know that there's like a right approach. I think it's almost what like Zvi said. If you just get out and hustle, like doors open for you, and then you have to pick the right path for you, right? So I think we had an opportunity in 2013 to raise $6.5 million from a venture capital fund and another strategic investor. We actually said no to that term sheet because they wanted certain things like liquidation preferences that we thought would cripple the company for later rounds.
Right.
But that's hard to say no to. So we had great angels who kind of gave us another $2.5 million to kind of build out the story a little bit more so that we could get more folks kind of into the game. And we were very fortunate to find a great partner in USAA this March who led a $10 million investment between 7.5 equity and 2.5 in venture debt from SVB. So
right. Okay. And so what's next for you guys? What's on the horizon as you look ahead?
Well, we're working with, I know Brian Williams from Viget is out here, but we're working on a really big project with the folks from Viget.
Oh,
and
cool.
So if you think about what we've done right now, we basically worked with retailers to take over programs where they had defined rules for certain audiences. So it could be like an outdoor guide program, like Under Armour actually gives 50% off all of their products on the first $5,000 worth of purchases. So we want to take over that program first on the supply side. Now our real challenge is, because we have that stability in kind of no merchant churn, we're growing, is to scale up the user demand. And so we're basically building a hub where consumers can come to discover all the different places where they can get better offers and better cash back by trusting us with their personal data. And so I think the next part of our story is really creating a narrative where people know that just like a bank, you're in control of your data. And while we'll take a commission off of that, we'll never ever share it without your permission. And that's kind of core to our
That's
positioning.
interesting. I mean, that reminds me of another company locally that was trying to approach it from a different angle.
Yeah.
And you're taking that on from a different angle.
Yeah, so I think actually, and when I didn't actually know they were local until I saw the market that we'd stumbled into.
Wow.
And then I was like, oh man, these guys just raised a ton of money.
Right.
We're so screwed.
Right. We're talking about Personal as another
Yeah.
company here locally. Interesting.
Yeah, but as luck would have it, I think we've taken a more sustainable approach. So Paul Graham has this great post. It's like his, I think it's 13 rules for startups or startups in 13 sentences. And number 5 is, it's better to have a few users love you than a lot of users who are ambivalent about your product. It's kind of what Dom was alluding to earlier, because it's a lot easier to expand user-wise than it is to make people love your product after they've already experienced it. And so, when we kind of proved product market fit for one community with the military, now we've rolled it out where Overstock is a great example. They started with military. They now use us for teachers, students, first responders, and they want a trade association as soon as we do a deal with them for the data. And so that one relationship is kind of proof that if you figure out the blueprint and then expand from that, you can build a sustainable business.
So a lot of good things happening with you guys. I assume, though, there were some harsh realities along the way. Can you share, maybe one that stands out the most? And then we'll kind of start doing some Q&A. So if you have questions, be ready to ask our panel here.
I don't know. It's hard to pick one, to be honest.
What's the one that you're just like, oh, man, that was a day?
Well, so the hardest part, I think, psychologically, is when you make a bet about the market and a team trusts you, but the first experiment or two is largely a failure, which...
Right.
TroopSwap was not what we had hoped it would be. Keeping the team together and getting them to believe in the revised vision is, until you can run that next experiment, that is the hardest period as a leader because, I mean, I remember in the days leading up to when, Under Armour was going live, like, I was so grateful to all the folks who had stuck with me, my investors who stuck with me,
Right.
the engineers who stuck with me when they could have defect. And then to see like that growth after that popped was like the best feeling ever. But there were dark days in terms of keeping a culture motivated. Because when you're winning, like we're winning now, people are so upbeat and the energy is awesome.
Right.
But in those like 8 months in between, I mean, it was really hard. And that was the toughest period for us. So
you've got to bring extra energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything you did specifically to help keep that going?
Well, I think you got to be data driven and you got to be honest about your hypothesis. And again, it's the Peter Thiel thing. If you've set goals for the company and for some reason you're not achieving those goals, you need to have like frequent, honest conversations about why that's not happening. And at a certain point, and this is where it's, art and science, is it something where you stay the course and eventually like the market turns for you, or is it where you have to fundamentally adjust the model?
Right.
And that's something that I think only the founders, Steve Blank has a pretty pointed view on that. The founders really have to make that call because people are trusting them to set the vision. So.
Right. Great. No, great advice. Okay.